Hey there, welcome to Peppergeek. In today's video, I'll show you how I transformed one of our outdoor potted pepper plants into this, a bonchi, or a bonsai chili pepper plant. Now this was one of our experiments through the winter just to kind of get us through the cold months and ready for the next year. But this was a particularly interesting one because I've never done it before. I've never overwintered a pepper plant. And of course, I've never created a bonsai pepper plant, but here we have it. It has survived the winter and it's looking healthier than ever. And I think we'll be bringing this back outdoors to see how it does through this season as well. So this video spans several months and I'll show you footage of breaking this plant down outdoors into its current form and as it regained health and bounced back from the traumatic experience to a pretty healthy looking little plant. I also tried some wiring, which is a traditional bonsai practice where you wire the plant. It's basically to make the plant look interesting. But since then, I've kind of let it go. It hasn't really been our top priority lately. We have about 60 pepper plants over there, but I still think it looks pretty cool. There are no peppers on it, but there are quite a few flowers. And like I said, we'll be bringing it back outdoors to see how it does in the coming months. So basically, I started by trimming the plant back and harvesting any remaining peppers. Cut off any main branches, getting it down to basically just the main root and a few offshoots. And I wanted to leave a few leaves on the plant to make sure that it could continue photosynthesizing and producing energy to recover the plant once it's in its new home. In addition to trimming down the foliage and the branches, I also trimmed back the roots so that they would fit inside of our bonsai pot. And like I said, it feels very traumatic doing this to a perfectly healthy plant. This plant was infested with aphids through the growing season, so we had to do something to get rid of them. And basically what I did was, after the plant was completely pruned, I submerged the entire plant in a soapy water solution with a bit of neem oil. And I left it in there for about 15 minutes, so any of the insects that were remaining in the roots or on the leaves were either drowned or rose to the surface. And then I skimmed off the surface and removed the plant, and I haven't seen an aphid since. Then with the plant properly trimmed back to this point, it was ready to make its way into its new home. Okay, so very many chaotic minutes later, we are ready to pot this into our bonsai pot. You can see I've trimmed the roots and got as much of the soil as I could out. There's still some soil in there, but it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, we're putting it into soil anyway. I might have to trim these a little bit more, but it looks like these will fit pretty well. That's our plant. We're gonna try to move as quickly as possible. So the first thing I'm gonna do is secure these little bits of plastic screen to prevent soil from going through the drainage holes. Just gonna secure these down like this. And then this goes in through the hole, like so. It sits on the surface. And then we just crimp the other side and the wire will keep it in place for good. One down, one to go. We'll use a couple of longer pieces to keep the plant in place in the pot because the soil is really loose and we need to actually secure down the root system using a little bit of coil just to prevent it from toppling over as the plant grows and gets heavier. Most bonsai pots should come with 4 holes in the bottom just for this purpose. That's exactly what it's for. So now this is the pot in the fully prepared state. It's ready to have a little bit of soil put into it and then the plant followed by more soil and some water. So I'm using Hoffman Bonsai soil mix. It's just a really coarse, heavy with rocks and things like that to keep the aeration really high and to allow for drainage. It should work with peppers. This is for bonsai trees, but we're kind of spitballing here, so hopefully this will work out for us. I'm just gonna add a little tiny bit of nutrition. Just a very little bit, just so that the plant doesn't have anything at all. But other than that, I'm gonna keep it pretty low in nutrition. So there's the soil mixture. Bonsai salad. Okay, so while the soil is still dry, I'm just gonna add a nice bottom layer to this. You can see I have my paper bags here for protection of my stuff. And that's why. So just about a ½ an inch there. I still think it needs a little more pruning. This is horribly painful for me, just so you know, and probably more so for the plant, but I'm gonna treat it as well as I can after this, and hope that it makes a full recovery. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Now the next step is to position this where we want it in the pot to be most appealing visually. After all, the purpose of bonsai is to sort of make a work of art and miniaturize a plant. So we're gonna try to go kind of off center. And I'm looking at it from the angle that I expect to be looking at it from. From your angle, it looks a little bit different, but from my angle, I think this is going to be sort of the point of view that we're gonna face this toward the room. So now all that's left to do is to fill in the gaps with more soil. So about halfway full, I'm going to use these wires now to secure the plant in place. Grip around the very base of the root system, kind of poking through. This plant is definitely dead, right? I mean, there's no way it survives this. Okay, with it in place now, the last thing we want to do is give it a nice thorough soaking. I'm actually going to submerge this in water to get rid of all of the air bubbles, and then we're just going to put this under grow lights, keep it indoors, keep it warm, try to keep it happy, and hope that it makes a very quick and speedy recovery. And we'll check back in a few weeks to see how things look. Okay, so we're back 28 days later, and would you look at that? The plant survived that really traumatic event, and it's come back and it's looking healthier than ever, honestly. I've been watering every 3 or 4 days. I've fertilized a couple of times, just a light fertilizer. So today I just wanted to show you the plant, and I'm going to try to sort of coax it in the right direction using a little bit of wire. Traditional bonsai growers use wire to sort of train the plant's new stems to sort of go in a direction that makes the plant more beautiful. So I'm gonna go for a sort of like a windswept thing where maybe the branches kind of go this way as if it's on the top of an old mountain and the wind has been sweeping it for you know, decades, and it looks beautiful. So that's the idea. We'll see how it actually ends up looking, but I'm really happy so far with the foliage growth. I'm even seeing some flower buds, really tiny flower buds, but ultimately the goal is to have this thing fruit and look cool. Let's do a little bit of wiring. All right, 20 minutes later, it's another bloodbath. I removed a lot of the leaves you can see here. I'm sure this gets a little easier as time goes on, but it just doesn't feel right to be taking away so much of the plant. But I've already seen how resilient this pepper plant has been, and I'm sure it's gonna be just fine. So I've sort of tried to train some of the branches to, as you can see, kind of curve this way. This one's curving like that. I'm gonna try to have most of the foliage up above, and the fruits will then sort of hang down below. Again, I have no idea how successful this is gonna be. This is really just an experiment and a fun way to stay active growing peppers indoors through the winter. So this is where we're at now. We'll check back in another couple weeks and see how things are looking. And that brings us to today. Check it out. This is it once again. Looks pretty healthy, but it did have some flaws. And I think the major issue here was the soil that we used. I used a bonsai soil, which is this very rocky mixture, but I was hoping to get more fruits off of this. We did get one pepper, and it did ripen and we ate it and it was delicious and spicy, but I think the major drawback here was the soil. It just drained very fast. It would only hold water for maybe a day or two, and I would have to water again. And I was very uncertain about how often to feed nutrients to the plant. So it went through a lot of different periods where it looked healthy and then it didn't look very healthy, and it was just very hard to maintain. So I think just a normal potting mix would have done a lot better for this plant, something with some peat moss to maintain the moisture levels for a little bit longer. So I think we'll probably try this again, but this was definitely a pretty cool experiment. The plant didn't die, as you can see, but I'd like to get a little more creative next time, maybe try to get some moss from outside and plant it on the surface and make it look a little more like fairy forest, if you know what I mean. Maybe get a little gnome or something. But that's really it. I hope you enjoyed this little experiment that we ran over the winter. It was definitely a lot of fun, and it kept our green thumb alive through the winter. We'd love to see your pictures if you've done this yourself. I know it's a pretty popular thing. If you have pictures of your plants, hashtag peppergeek on Instagram or wherever you're posting your pictures, and we'd love to check them out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.